had to sell my car to sell my bike. My bike broke, I couldn't buy a new one. In the summer of 2017, we published an article that a gentleman didn't like. And that led to an 18-month public prosecutor having my passport, where 5 of the team I'm responsible for are called to a police station for interrogation.
God, that was amazing! Oh God, I love it so much! Today, I'm thrilled to have Richard Fitzgerald, the CEO and founder of Augustus Media, the award-winning digital media company behind Loving Dubai and its family of local news brands. Augustus Media expanded its Loving network into 11 cities across the Middle East and North Africa, from Abu Dhabi and Riyadh to Cairo, and launched Smashy Business, Smashy Sport, and Smashy Entertainment as a part of its multi-vertical strategy. In our conversation with Richard, we'll reveal the scrappy growth hacks that fueled Loving Dubai rapid rise, how he scaled Augustus Media from one-man blog to a powerhouse network in 11 markets, publishing 14 posts a day, and his top personal branding playbook, why he believes subject matter expertise alone isn't enough. What is the most surprising thing that you found in Dubai?
13 years later, I'm not one bit bored. You know, when I was in London in my 20s, I thought it was like a developed, sophisticated, modern city. I remember telling my bosses when I was moving to Dubai, they had their blinkers on. They're like, why are you going to a city of 2 million people, 3 million people? Demograph the statistics now at the end of 2025, we're going to cross over to 4 million. But like, it wasn't even that. It's like when I came here, I realized the world was a certain way at the time, and it still is to a degree, but now it's more multipolar, and also the region, I was opened up to the region. My first 3 years in the region, I wasn't really in Dubai. I was based in Dubai, but had a regional role. So I was exposed to the region, and that gave me even more input to how to navigate Dubai when I understand different cultures and different people in different countries. So 13 years later, the fact that I'm not bored, you know, like all of us, like you, I can tell, like anyone who's done product person and done lots of startups, you would be bored if Dubai wasn't growing, challenging, stimulating, interesting, and it certainly is. So I think that's kind of in one way surprising, but sort of I figured that out in the early days. So yeah.
Where do you get the inspiration, the spark of first Loving Dubai?
I'm associated with Loving Dubai brand, and I did create it from scratch in Dubai. However, it's not an original idea. You know, a friend of mine had Lovin Dublin. You know, we sort of started from scratch here, and now we do own the IP and the brand in the region. But it wasn't necessarily massively original. Like, there's many copycats. There's many other what are now called pages. Like back then, it was sort of a blog type. You know, people didn't know whether it was a legit media source back then. And they used to call, this is 2015, they used to call these things blogs kind of. And now they might call modern media brands something else. Like they call them pages per se on Instagram, but they might call things like podcasts or shows or creators or things. So naming conventions kind of change. I was in the media agency world and social media agencies. And I was a little bit restless in my 20s and 30s. Like, I was like, oh, should I be doing something? Then I was like, okay, no, it's okay. You can be an entrepreneur. You can climb the corporate, you can climb, I don't really like that word, but you can climb the internal ladder and you can be entrepreneurial. You don't necessarily need to go out on your own and that sort of thing. And Loving Dubai was my out in my own bit. I left I left WPP. I joined a startup, and in that sort of 6 or 7 months I was in that startup, I also set up Loving Dubai at the same time. Then eventually I kept running Loving Dubai, which the business I had registered was Augustus Media. So it wasn't necessarily a spark, it was kind of a combination of, you know, what I felt my world needed back then was a real-time social media agency. I didn't feel that the agency world was equipped to serve what marketers and brands needed, the speed of which they wanted things. And I think a lot of our business model, and one of the brands I was inspired by back then was BuzzFeed. And in terms of, you know, the publishing feed on Lovin Dubai, the lists, you know, one of the first ever lists that we had viral was 23 reasons you must visit Dubai once before you die or whatever. And then, you know, we put $1,000 into boosting that on Facebook in like September 2015. And when I was walking around the agencies in, you know, Media City, people say, oh, so I've seen that pop up, you know. So it was that sort of, it was leading with your content. It's like when you have a restaurant, you let people sample your burgers or whatever. Like, it was leading with those articles that actually was our marketing, because people had sampled articles and sampled the list inclusion. But the point I was really making about BuzzFeed is the business model. They believed in native branded content. They thought that was a more effective way to do marketing. And I sort of agreed, but they didn't really have the price point. I remember working for Nissan at the time and asking for a quote for the Middle East to do branded content on BuzzFeed. And the numbers we were talking were crazy, considering there was no BuzzFeed in the Middle East. You know, a list inclusion of, 13 ways to go off-roading in UAE, brought to you by Nissan Patrol or whatever, right? Now, back then, there were some marketers out there that thought all marketing was going down that route because it was obviously more native, and a lot of platforms didn't have ad units in them. Like the ad units in the mobile, when we started Loving Dubai, were very, very nascent. Like, Facebook went public without a mobile ad unit in 2012. That's why their share price dropped, because people looked under the hood and said, you're making no money from mobile. But the iPhone's been out since 2007, and it's May 2012, and you're going public and you've no mobile revenue, so then, and then the story is history or whatever, the rest is history. But so long way of saying, like, a few things sort of came together. What became my startup or my idea was what was publishing, but actually it was in that sort of ability to run a social media department and the inclination and desire to run a social media agency.
And why did you choose Dubai to start this?
After living here for 3 years, I was 32, so I'd sort of I lived in Dublin. I had a degree. I worked in about 5 or 6 different companies over a decade, and I'd worked in London. And, after 3 years in the Middle East, hopping around Dubai, I didn't give it huge thought. I just felt like, I guess I was inspired still by the city. And I thought, well, obviously Loving Dubai, like, hey, Niall Harbison, the guy who had Lovin Dublin, we were friends. I was like, hey, Niall, what are you doing with this? I think I can do that here. And I asked around the Mindshare media agency office at the time, and I go, guys, Mahmoud, I wasn't one of the massive consumers of the Lovin Dubai style content back then. And I go, guys, what do you think of this? And they go, no, don't do it, Rich. We're saturated on lifestyle content. Back then you had Time Out, Shortlist, What's On, and there were stylists. There was more and more coming. And I was like, yeah, but they're magazines. And they're like, sure, but they have Facebook pages. I'm like, they have Facebook pages, but they're not doing social media. And they didn't really know what I was talking about. And when we went live, I remember doing a bit of an audit. I remember counting how many posts these brands would do a week. It was about 10, right?
Oh, no, a day.
Yeah, it was about 10 a week.
Yeah.
And we started with about 14, 15 a day. 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just rolling every 40 minutes, publishing schedule. And that was real-time publishing. And that's what brands couldn't really get. Gary Vaynerchuk has all this like pumping out content thing. So we just turned media into that. And of course, there were news companies, like there was, 7 Days, which eventually we bought over their assets. And like, there's obviously Kalish Times and all that sort of stuff, but they were sort of dumping stuff onto platforms. They weren't publishing and curating. Like, I use the term protect the feed. I don't let stuff go up there unless it's really right for that feed, So a lot of it was around that. But the question really was about Dubai. I mean, in hindsight, we owe a lot of credit to the success of Lovin Dubai and the success of Augustus Media. We're now in 22 cities across the region on Lovin. Smashy has 13 verticals. Smashy business is picking up, and we have 120 employees. We'll do $15 million gross revenue this year, 25% EBITDA. We have 5 offices. We have offices, nearly a third one in UAE. We have Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Doha, Riyadh, Cairo. And we have journalists on the ground in at least 11 countries, cities like Muscat, Baghdad, Gaza, Amman, Beirut, Bahrain. But really the credit is in Loving Dubai. And I think, we had a chat offline about like, there aren't that many successful modern media companies. On one level, it's a stupid decision to start a modern media company when the tech platforms have clearly dominated. At the other level, if you can find the right mix, and partially the brand, partially the stories, and the city and the economics that has great stories to tell, then you're onto a winner. And Dubai is very much part of that story. But I also think the sort of emerging modern Gulf cities and the multipolar world and this sort of new dynamic in the region that not everyone is seeing, but we see it. I think that's sort of that's part of the choice, I guess.
Can you walk me through day one of Loving Dubai? What is the task list, the team? Exactly, can you walk me through the first day?
First day was, I think it was a Sunday or Monday. It was the 1st of September, 2015. It was 6 p.m. and we went to Media One Hotel. Niall was passing through. The night before, I got a cease and desist letter. No, I didn't, but the editor we had got a cease and desist letter from friend of mine now, but I better not say her name. But we had a rival brand at the time, and it wasn't really a rival brand. It was actually an app that was a discovery for the city, and they weren't doing content, but they saw Lovin Dubai, and they wanted to do something like that. So they sort of said to their editor that he can't join us, and so he sort of panicked. Didn't show up for work the next day and has left the country and never be seen again or whatever. But he actually wasn't doing anything wrong. But they just did they did that non-compete with
That's
thing.
day one.
That's day one. So that's day one. So we didn't actually have an editor, and I kind of had a few people I wanted to hire. There was an influencer at the time. Who I thought a good idea, like Niall did in Dublin. He had a thing called a chief friend, because you need credibility, right? You need to be more than a blog. So there was an influencer that we asked, would you be chief friend? And again, she sort of said, hey, I want more equity. We were offering her 10% of the whole company, right? And she got a bit greedy, and we were like, and then we ended up not having a chief friend and getting credibility in other ways. This is the funny thing about building a brand.
10% is a lot.
Huge. Of Augustus Media, huge,
yes.
Huge. Without any deliverables, and it would have been a big mistake on my part.
Yes.
And that
would be worth a lot.
yeah. I mean, potentially, like obviously media is in a tech valuation, but yeah, it's a good chunk of a business. And so yeah, thinking back, actually, there wasn't a lot going right at the start. But and I was still full-time as MD of a startup. And luckily, because of the good regulation on free zones, because my name was on the DMCC, Astrolabs, Augustus Media, they told me as due diligence, you need to go get an NOC from your current employer. So I'm a transparent guy anyway, but luckily I got an NOC. So when I resigned later, and indirectly they subcontracted work to us because we had good relations at the time. But the founder did say to me, if I didn't sign an NOC, Rich, I'd be taking half Lovin Dubai off you. This sort of thing. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but legally and then obviously like that. So all these things could have sort of went a different way. Day one was publishing. We wanted to publish a lot on Facebook. It was a page views game back then. We didn't buy any followers or accounts on day one. We set up fresh brands, everything fresh, and we started publishing. And in the first week we had a few stuff, and we had raised, I put in $20,000 gratuity for Mindshare. William, my brother, gave $20,000, and that money went quite quickly. Two other people one put in $40,000 and one put in two chunks of $40,000 over the next 8 months, because we didn't make any money. And that $140,000 was all gone. 80, 40, 20, 20. $160,000 was all gone by about May 2016. And I had hired an editor from ITP on 38,000 dirhams a month, right? Back then, as a startup,
yeah,
with a franchise, with no idea, with nothing fresh, because the cease and desist happened, right?
Okay.
So she joined on the 15th of November. Dates, it's also clear, right? So 15th of December 2015, she came to me in about April, and she said, nothing happens in Dubai over the summer. I'm like, there's 4 million people in UAE on Twitter and Instagram, stuff happens. They're on their phones. Like, I want to go back to the UK for 4 months. I'm like, yeah, but that's not really, that might be newspaper world and print deadlines. That's not social media. So she goes to me, hey, Rich, you're such a G. You call me out in it. I don't want any stuff from you. I'll resign and we'll part separate ways. So she left and I became editor of Loving Dubai and founder of my own business full time on the 1st of May, 2016. We were 250,000 page views in May 2015. We were still the same number when I joined as editor because it was chugging along. It had an old school style to it. And I just started clickbaiting, growth hacking. At the end of the year, I bought 7 Days Social Media Assets. There's another story there. In January, we crossed over to 1 million page views, 2016. Bought 7 Days at the end of the year and then announced that in press in January. And I asked favors with letters from the CEO of 7 Days to merge 40,000 followers on Instagram on 7 Days, 20,000 followers on Loving Dubai. And overnight, the followers were climbing because I was able to prove that the people who signed up for news in the UAE weren't getting it. So Dublin headquarter, who could do this at the time, did it. They had 800,000 followers. So they had 600,000 followers on Facebook. We had 200 and we merged them all. So this distribution outlet got me from 750,000 page views in December 2016 to 1 million in January. By June of that year, there was 2 viral stories. On the 5th of June, 2017, the Qatar blockade happened. We did 23 news stories that day. So remember I said 10 to 14 stories a day. We did 23 posts on Facebook that day. And on the 29th of June that year, a gentleman in the region came out that he was dating a famous American singer. And we posted that. And that went number 1 on Reddit globally. So we had 2.9 million page views that month, up from 250 when I joined as editor. I can't spell. The articles were typo written. And luckily then a features editor of 7 Days, Caitlin, joined us and became deputy editor and then editor. So luckily, you know, like I was able to growth hack, but we sort of added credibility as we went.
I'm just stressed hearing the early days story. They were not smooth at all. Oh man. But do you remember?
These days aren't smooth either.
But I mean, in the beginning, I would have quit, to be honest. It's really hard. But do you remember any other story where you think of the early days or like, oh shit, this might fail?
Yeah, loads. Like, you know, I had to sell my car, to sell my bike. My bike broke. I couldn't buy a new one. I had to rent out I had sort of bought a mortgage 2-bed in Sport City. I had to rent out a room. The guy wouldn't pay me the rent. On the publishing side, in the summer of 2017, we published an article that a gentleman didn't like, and that led to an 18-month public prosecutor having my passport situation, where 5 of the team I'm responsible for are called to a police station for interrogation.
You were very resilient. But can you tell me the bold move of buying 7 Days? How did that opportunity land on your desk? What were the stakes?
I mean, the stakes were, I think, I keep forgetting the exact figure. I was praising myself earlier for remembering dates, but it was either $20,000 or 20,000 dirhams. I think it was $20,000. But it might have been 20,000 dirhams because I thought I was only buying the Twitter account because I'd worked with Mindshare and I remember trying to get Henkel and these global brands to change names at Facebook and no one would let me. But again, I described that sort of letter from them saying the reason why people subscribe and they needed it. So the CEO gave me the access to Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Now, in digital marketing back then, actually, strategically, the value of the 7 Days UAE domain name was good for backlinks, for SEO, and for page views. But I was kind of playing a page views game, but I was really building a community and building social media followers. And that allowed us to pivot quickly when media sort of pivoted. People talk about Web 2.0 or whatever, but, digital media, a lot of the original digital revenue came from traffic and page views. And that sort of changed a lot. Websites the value of websites and the page views and the banners and all that sort of has dropped a lot.
SEO dropped as well.
Yeah, exactly. And even more now with ChatGPT and AI and all that sort of stuff. So even during the pandemic and Corona, like how we were publishing on social media, on Instagram, back then, Facebook had a share button, but Instagram didn't. And, so there was no news in the Instagram feed. So that share button that we put into our stories didn't exist. That was quite new. And when you had that, then I could DM you, I could share a link to you via DM and I could share news. So once we had that, it was more than just comments and likes. So this was an evolution of things in terms of what was important. So, but the 7 days thing, remember I said that I thought to get credibility, we needed like a famous person to back us. Like people say, oh, if you had an endorsement in the UAE from some well-known local business person or whatever, or in Dublin, it was the captain of the Irish rugby team was the chief friend of Lovin Dublin. So I thought that's the playbook. Let's get someone who's influential. But I couldn't, so I moved on. And when you're building a brand, when whether it's a supplement product or whether it's apparel, or whether it's to buy fixed chocolate, like people always say, is it the product or is it the thing that made it go viral, right? But credibility, like you complimented Smashy Business at the start, and I remember sitting with a media owner in the region, and he told me with Smashy, Rich, what you need to do is you need to find an American brand to say Smashy Business in association with Bloomberg Media for the credibility. And he could be right, and that's a tactic. And I don't disagree or not disagree. They were paying $50,000 for their marketing magazine to be in association with, under the headline. It's a different. I better not say because the number might be wrong, but in association with. So that was his advice. It was good advice, credibility. The 7 days gave us credibility because people thought, oh, they're news now. But we always thought we were news. I know I need legitimacy. And if something comes, it doesn't come on your desk, but if I find a way to buy 7 days, I will. Now, I'm not going to do that in 22 cities, but I need to get credibility in 22 cities. I need to get credibility with Smashy. And I might find many different ways to get credibility. Some of it is through repetition and trust. Some of it is through marketing. Some of it is through influencers or people of note sharing your content. But you need credibility, right? Like if a singer wears your apparel on stage, that might give you credibility. Like, how do you get known? How do you get authentic? How do you get famous? How do you get known for something? Why does Lovin Dubai have a bit of a moat? Like, it's not like, as you said, like, why do we make money more than others? And why, even though there's 50 other pages in Dubai, why are we known as the bigger one?
Community.
Maybe, but also that the brand is known.
Yeah.
Like there are good community pages on Facebook that probably have more engagement than Lovin Dubai on Facebook groups, but no one really knows the name of it because the brand's not there because it's just a group, right? And yes, community, but like it's a business, it's a media outlet. Like there are communities in Dubai who are just communities, like who go for walks and who meet up, right? Like, yeah, communities maybe, but like
the brand is more valuable.
Yeah, and I think there is a mix. I agree with the community side, and there is the repetition. Like we haven't taken a day off. Like there hasn't been a day where there haven't been stories or. So that, as you said, the consistency, but also the 7 days thing, that the understanding what credibility is, the striving for acceptance and credibility.
What was the most scrappy or unconventional thing that you did in the early days to grow the brand or the company?
I think I mentioned a lot of them. Taking on the role of editor when I needed to, acquiring assets when we needed to, sort of breaking the rules and being a bit brave around publishing. A lot of that stuff, treating journalism in a different way. But yeah, Scrappy, in startup worlds, like that term growth hacking was there. And, there's lots of things like how we discovered content was growth hacking, like how we use the term rip share, like we rip something, download the video files from other accounts, credit and publish and things like that. A lot of that stuff is, and then putting contextual wrappers and banners around that. This sort of publishing technique, it's the new version of vox popping. Instead of going around to the street or the malls, actually people have already vox pop on TikTok and X or Twitter. You just have to repackage. So a lot of that is techniques that a lot of traditional media still sort of turn their nose up on, so yeah.
That's a good point. So I see a lot of podcast clips recorded from somewhere, but they get mind share on your Loving Dubai, and you attribute it back to them as well.
Yeah, and I think that's super interesting because that's strategic. We've decided not to compete with your show. We've decided not to do episode drops. The Loving Dubai show is a daily show, but we decided not to make it about guests. We have 2 hosts and we don't need a guest on the show, because what we decided to do is that you're not really going to talk about anyone else's podcasts, right? But Loving Dubai will, because we decided we're going to be the layer under or above or beside the creators. And we're going to tell the story of the creators in Dubai and all the city. So creators need media. True. They need blue ticks. They need verification. They need amplification. Now, some of them get pedantic and pretentious and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. But actually, like when you actually look at it, that we're not, in these platforms, we're not making revenue against their content because Instagram don't give us cash. And also, secondly, the terms of service in these countries are, but it's the old school. Like if someone says something on the talk show on a Saturday night and the newspapers are full of that clip the next day, then that's just media amplifying stories. So, and I think with AI, we're even going to get more of this. I was listening to a podcast today and the product guy for Perplexity was saying, what I want AI to do is if Mark Zuckerberg does an hour and a half podcast on in the US, I might have time at the weekend to listen to it, but actually during the week, I need someone to tell me what's important in that. And he's sort of alluding to the fact that AI will summarize it for him. But also we can summarize it by picking the best bits and digesting it into the feeds,
It's a great point, because sometimes I don't have time to watch the 20-minute for the morning show. I just go to Instagram and you always put the 3-4 important points in the Instagram feed. So yes, it's very easy. 5 minutes, I can catch up with the most important points.
Or the newsletter, the 6:30 in the morning, the Smashy Business newsletter is like morning brew. And that's where I get my news from, yes, Instagram is there and I like it, but smart brevity, text, audio and video, that combination between vertical, social media, really a lot of it now is vertical video. And then you've got the podcasts, the longer form, and then the sort of text done in smart ways. Like I was with the CEO of a fintech company this morning and he said, do people in the region read? Well, he has a point. They don't not read. They just read shorter and quicker. Like it doesn't mean you remove text. It just means you design for the mobile. Like you're a product guy, right? Like, in his fintech app, he said we removed text. What he meant is that they removed lots of long descriptions, but there's still text and there's still icons, like, you can still design articles for the mobile with big headlines, big headline as a sentence, and you can scroll down and over a scroll, you could read like 30 sentences with an image, which becomes a paragraph. So that sort of thing, like that sort of evolution of consumption and how the mind works and how we're, creatures of sort of UX, UI and these apps that we consume on.
I mean, it's a very good point, because sometimes when you guys use clips from my podcast, I don't guys see you as a competitor. On the contrary, my audience, they share it to me and I feel proud that I get amplified. My podcast reach more views. But there's another point, which is after you started in Dubai, when did you decide, let's go to Cairo, let's go to Riyadh, let's go to Doha? When did you realize that, yes, it's a good opportunity to expand now?
On day one, I wrote down a mission to become the modern media company of choice in the Middle East and North Africa.
That's a big vision.
And it's sort of like, what does that mean? It means that consumers and brands will choose our platforms. And for me, Middle East and North Africa is that, is loose, but it's kind of 22 Arab League, Arabic speaking countries. When we were paying a franchise fee, we were restricted. And when we bought out of that by the end of 2019, we had a bit more freedom. So at the end of 2019, all it looks like is Lovin Saudi, Bilarabi, the green one, and Lovin Dubai. And then in 2020, I put everything under one domain. I launched an app. I created like 20 pages, and we gradually grew the others. In 2017, we became the first foreign-owned media company in Saudi Arabia. We got the license under Sagia. Now it's Invest Saudi. We have Ignite funding over there. Our hits in Saudi are actually Snapchat shows. One called Me Manchester Social Media, which is now under Smashy Entertainment. But Lovin did grow there, just not as big as here yet. And then in 2021, I wanted to grow Arabic and product. So I did Smashy business in Arabic, Smashy TV in Arabic in Egypt. That sort of evolved. And then by July 2022, with sort of 10 developers and some Arabic content people in Egypt, in a kind of co-working space, we then launched Lovin Cairo. Only in 2023 did Lovin Cairo start hitting. And the last 2 years, it's really taken off. Then before the World Cup, I got one person on PRO service in Doha. It took a year of faffing about to sort of get that one right. Now in the last year, that one's working. We scraped, I think, 2,000 articles off the lovindubai.com website and put them on lovin.co/Abu Dhabi. So from 2015 to 2020, there was around 2,000 articles specifically mentioning Lovin Abu Dhabi. So Lovin Abu Dhabi started on paper on digital paper in 2020. And only really, we opened the office there in the summer of 2023. I just had the review with the head of the office there, Hamdan, today, and our revenue in Abu Dhabi is more than our revenue in Saudi. We have 4 people in Abu Dhabi. We've nearly 20 people in Saudi. So Lovin Abu Dhabi is amazing. Abu Dhabi is an emirate of 2.9 million people, a city of 1.5 million people. And this is the thing about product entry and market entry. Like on paper, I thought Saudi would be the bigger market to decide to move into. So, to answer the question, when you decide to market entry, we kind of allow things to, we plan to be everywhere, but we sort of allow things to see as they go, Now, I bit off more than I could chew by launching 13 verticals with Smashy and then calling Smashy a streaming service, but I wanted to be like Lovin. And there was many positioning things that I kept on evolving. And now there are 13 verticals, but to digest it, I'm only doing Smashy business, really Smashy sports a bit and Smashy entertainment in English and Arabic, podcast, newsletter, social, and then the streaming app, which has all the local UAE sports. But of the Lovin and Smashy brands, they have sub-brands. So Lovin has 22 horizontal cities. Smashy has 13 verticals. Of those 35 brands, there's only 10 of them that make money in any given month. So only 6 or 7 of the Lovin cities make money. Like Riyadh, Doha, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Cairo, sometimes Jeddah, sometimes Kuwait's picking up a little bit, sometimes the odd campaign on Sharjah or Bahrain or something like that. But the rest don't make money. In the summer, maybe a little bit of cash in Beirut. But and then only 2 on Smashy. But at the right time, a big crypto platform said, we need to grow Smashy Crypto with you. So at the right time, we will do it because, but we're building in public. Like we're sort of like, they're set up and the naming conventions and this whole strategy of Augustus Media of the train tracks for the region, having a lawyer in every country, getting a license in every country, getting a bank account in every country. We have 250 social media profiles. We have a podcast network under Podio with 35 shows. I'm now doing an AI episode most days of the week on Smashy Entertainment with no hosts. And I will have Smashy Crypto as podcast. We get 2 million monthly downloads now on podcasts. We're playing a different game to other people. I'm not doing episode drops because I see where the world is going. The world is in an operating system. And do you know, like there are operating systems getting into cars, right? That all these players and all these streaming and all these airlines are going to need content. And we're ready with the train tracks. So whether I have 50 people in Egypt, I'll get an office on the 1st of April next year. We have 2 offices now. We'll move into a bigger one. There'll be 100 people there. I have a license in Pakistan. Eventually, I will pump that one and I'll get 100 people there.
Pakistan?
Yeah.
But my question is, so in tech, once we reach a product market fit in one market and we look at a certain KPIs, then we say, okay, let's expand to a new market. There's any KPI or there's any metric that you were looking before jumping to Cairo or Doha or Egypt or not?
I think it's different. I get the tech thing, but like every market's so different, you know. And I don't think Lovin is. I don't think Lovin is the same as tech, right? Because it's not really a franchise, you know. I think you have to adjust it. You have to tweak it. You don't say it's the same size straw in each market. And also in Saudi, like our client base in UAE, you could say, okay, you know, what's the social media penetration or smartphone penetration? Then we have an audience. Fine, we have an audience, but do we have customers? The SME market in Saudi isn't as much for what we do, so to speak. You know, we can enter there, but like the unit economics of each market is different, and the timing is a bit different. So yeah.
Initially, you said that you protect the feed, and this is one of the common problems in media businesses. Once they scale, they start to accept anything, and the quality drops down. How do you decide exactly what content was worth producing? Is there any frameworks, instincts, or any signals that you trust?
I wish we had a bit. On one level, we don't over plan because we don't really do. We say we're non-scripted. We don't do originals. So when we get to work in the morning, the first person walks in the door at 7 a.m. in the Dubai office, and our job, if the last shift worker was 10 p.m. the night before, our job is to curate into our feeds what you were texting to your friends on Snap or WhatsApp the night before, right? So we have to capture the zeitgeist of the city, and we have to do that in an engaging way, right? You know, this morning, from about 4 p.m. yesterday, all over X and then Twitter. I don't know on TikTok. I'm not on it as much as I should be. But the Coldplay thing with the CEO was going viral, right? Luckily, Nausser, the good comedian in the UAE, of many of them, he'd already picked it up. So he gave us a way to do a hook and to tell people the background, the context. Ward Ahmed, who was on Smashy Business, we were looking for this company that the CEO is part of to see what their presence is in the Middle East, to see if we could cover the story in Smashy Business. And because they do EMA off Europe, it was such a tenuous link. They've no employees, they've no jobs here. So we didn't cover it. She probably mentioned it on the podcast, but we didn't necessarily cover it. And that's the discipline. We don't want the world. We have enough of Western heroes. We have enough of Western startup founders, of Western books, of Western culture. And what Loving Dubai remains disciplined with is we write about people from here. And what Smashy does is we try and create here. You mentioned you got some of the people for your podcast by seeing Smashy Business. And that's the point, right? You know, I remember there was a really good business tech entrepreneur in the region. And he said to me, Rich, who's inspiring in the region in business? Because I can't name one. And I was kind of like, yeah, because there are people, but no one knows their stories because they don't build their personal brands, and media don't tell their stories because media is obsessed with Bezos and Musk and blah, right? And rightly so, because of the $1 trillion economies and the market cap and blah, blah, blah. But actually, you know, and this makes me really laugh sometimes. Like, you know, I think the region has a problem with understanding language, because what people think the solution is more Arabic content. What we need is more Arab content, because if you translated all the content in the world from English into Arabic, it would all be Western culture. Because all the movies and all the books, all the startup books are all written by American ideology, right? And all the best autobiographies are all American or whatever, right? It's very few and far between. Now, there's a few, but it's not enough. So what we actually need is Arab stories. We need Arab heroes. We need Muslim heroes. We need all these sort of things. And you can get that in any language or any form or visual. And what Smashy tagline is for the driven, the dreamers, the doers. You know, Saudi Arabia hasn't won a gold medal in the Olympics. They will. Now, does that go on Lovin Saudi or does that go on Smashy Sports? We have a series on Smashy called the Dreamers series. It's just an internal term, but like, you know, we just want to tell these stories. So yeah. So I think some of the way I'm answering that is that's the content lens. If you have a media lens, like Lovin is Lovin Life, it's community stories. But yes, as a utility, we are a tabloid, we are a news outlet, and we will put standard news up there, right? So we don't, that's why we're not just a community. With Smashy, yeah, we want to tell inspiring stories, but we haven't made movies, documentaries, books. We haven't done TED Talks. Like, we will do fast social news in a tabloidy way on Smashy.
There's another thing that you do very well, which is localization. So what I mean by localization, in the morning show, there's always, on the left, there's always an Arabic speaking person. On the right, there's always a very domain experienced person. Is that by design or no, just randomly?
Do you mean on Lovin Dubai or Smashy?
Lovin Dubai is Smashy business.
I think it's both. I think, so yes and no.
Okay.
I think one of the myths that, again, we dispelled is that there's no talent in the region. There's the Hamad bin Rashid School at AUD for journalism. There's many universities here. They're just as good. And with modern media, they train journalism, but then they need to learn about digital discovery and packaging and platforms and podcasts. And what we found, especially with Lovin Dubai, if you grew up here, you sort of, when you talk and when you write, you have an innate sense check. Not culturally, I don't mean like in terms of setting people, I mean in terms of like, if a mall closes in Sharjah, you can relate and you can talk to people on the show about nostalgia because you felt it. And what I felt is that what Western media did here, what media did here is they hired journalists from the UK because there was no talent. And, you know, a lot of them came from the UK. And the language on the constitution here is American English, but the language in all the magazines and the publishing houses here is British English. And when I hired editors, they just make Lovin Dubai British English. I don't really care. On one day, it's one or the other. You know, on paper, in my view, I would follow the country. But so we do many things that we sort of break the molds. And another owner of a media company said, it's too expensive in the UAE. And I said, why? He goes, oh, annual tickets. I said, that's not in the labor law. You know, if you hire people from Dubai, where do they have to go home to? You know, the Barsha? Like, what's the ticket to Barsha? Like, so it's just many of these perceptions that you just rip up. And in terms of like, I saw this as content manufacturing. I built a kitchen in Beirut with Mindshare. I had 30 trilingual graduates for community management. And when I did Lovin Dubai, I refused to do it because I wanted to have people on the ground here and I wanted to have a business model to pay their wages with what we could afford and in the brackets that we thought was fair for the market. And we did. And we did, you know, more and double what some of our competitors do. I know that changes now, it's a bit loose, but like, so many of the things, one of the lovely story about what you're mentioning about localization is we have Abdelmajid is Ward's co-host on the show on Smashy Business. And he talked about this on the show once. And he said that Pakistanis who host business shows like Rizwan Khan and a few famous ones they have American accents, and he said people like that who went to American education were more likely to get the job because someone without a twang accent mightn't get the job as much because it mightn't be as palatable to a global audience on the ear. And I love that we're mixing it. I love that we're mixing it. You know, that the twang and the accent is for a global mix, but it's sort of. But it's not just for one demographic. That's one level that I love. And I also love the level like Casey, my sister, hosts Lovin Dubai show, but she does have someone who grew up here or can speak Arabic beside her. And it's so important, but it's so hard to find. Like for years, I was looking for a Smashy business host. And I told Ward, I was like, it's probably going to be a Lebanese American guy who can pronounce Khalaf al-Habtour and knows who he is, but actually has an American accent. And I end up with 20-year-old Ward Ahmed from Sudan. You know, she's incredible because she's very smart and also understands Arabic and also is able to pronounce things and also understands the culture, Islam, and you know everything that's super important, right? You know, so that sort of thing is really important. But you know, it's not the only thing that's important, right? Like we localize, but we also have we also have this idea that Lovin can work anywhere. People always tell me in every market, oh, it's different here. And then we prove them wrong. And then we go, yeah, it's different, but also it's the same. As in the same techniques. Like if I tell you, Mahmoud, to remember the sweet that you had with your granny when you were 6 over Eid al-Fitr, if you remember what that sweet is, it probably depends on what country or city you grew up in, right? And 10 different people in the region will remember 10 different sweets, brand names, types. And someone from my part of the world will remember Werther's Originals, or will remember, right? So, but nostalgia is the same. The emotion is the same. The technique's the same. So when we do an article on Lovin Saudi, 10 chocolate bars that you remember growing up in Riyadh, that every Riyadhi will remember, that technique is the same in Islamabad, in Cairo. The ingredients are different, but the emotion's the same. And so this is why the playbook is the same, but the knowledge is different.
Again, when I hear people of Loving Dubai or even Smashy Business, they talk about Omani ships or talk about Ravi. I was like, yes, only people who grew up here or knows the place really well. They're like, yeah, they understand me. And I love that they don't sound American or Western. No, they sound Pakistani. They sound Arabic. This sounds like just my friends. So I love that you guys actually put some thought into it.
Yeah, and I think I love how you said sound like your friends. And I think when we do headlines, we always say, well, how would you text your friend? You know, not everyone follows this, and I try and remind people, but newspaper headline is man falls off building or man falls on floor, right? That's a newspaper headline. I love in Dubai had been headline should be this downtown individual accidentally fell or whatever. This guy from, so how would you text your friends?
Yeah.
Because that's now how we relate to things. That's another way. That's why creators are more relatable. That's why we follow creators. And if you're doing modern media, you have to act like a creator.
And this is a great point. You mentioned BuzzFeed in the beginning. And BuzzFeed, what they discovered really well, which is they created characters.
Yeah.
Because nobody watch a brand, they watch people. And how much thought that you put into those creating characters. So for example, Ward and Abdul Majid, I know exactly what they like, what they don't like. Loving Dubai, your sister, I know they have a certain idiosyncrasies. Now it makes it very different and I kind of relate to them. Do you put some process into building those characters?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I think, are they going to be creators, or is Smashy Business the brand that one follows? And over the 10 years, many people have been on Lovin Dubai as presenters and hosts, and they come and go. And every day when we do takeovers, it's someone else, right? So I think it's just modern media needs to have relatable faces. We have a makeup room in our studio, but we don't use it. Like, it's not about that, It's about being relatable. So by design, yes, but also, to a degree, like we don't manage talent. We have full-time employees. They have salaries. They'll get shares. Like, it's that sort of environment. I want people to be relatable, but also, like, I'm quite conscious of the fact that, like, if the show becomes all about the host, then as a business, that's not smart, because if the host leaves, you're in trouble. But also as a brand identity, the hosts that you mentioned are amazing, but their viewpoints and their view of capitalism and their view of the region and their view of things, they might have ideologies, they might have different views.
Yes.
So, and that might evolve over time as they read, as they, as many things. So I don't think that's a full strategy to go all in on that.
Okay.
Because what you want to build is a timeless brand. Like, you want to build a Vanity Fair, a Vogue, a Bloomberg, that when you mention something, it stands for something. So while the presenters can be relatable, the brand needs to be consistent.
I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but when you launch Smashy Business, it's very different than Loving Dubai. What is exactly the hole or the gap in the market that you're trying to fill?
What you're trying to fill, to tell the stories of the heroes that haven't been told in the region. And I think it's not just you and me. It's like, up until now, UAE people can't trade on the Tawda wool in Saudi Arabia, right? So like there's many things that haven't been localized. There's many things that were just Western culture, Western NASDAQ, Western everything, right? And it's a full ecosystem. Like, you know, when you have everything working together, when you have good governance, good leadership, when you've good infrastructure, good schooling, good internet connection, and good media that suits the region, that suits a different constitution than that one from the 1770s in that small country over there. Like, you know, like when you have different things going on, then things can work better. You know, like. It really baffles me that so many people who live in the UAE who love delivery apps couldn't name the delivery apps that are killing it in Saudi Arabia that are worth $1 billion. And it's not that they haven't market entry, not that they don't speak Arabic. It's because no media is telling their stories. And equally, when we started publishing about creators on Loving Dubai, people would say to us, stop making stupid people famous. They would criticize us for telling them who are the individuals who've got a following in the market in a positive way, you know? And for me, that was baffling, right? Like I didn't understand that. I was like, you know, like why can't local media have a digital environment?
I mean, one last question. I know we ran out of time. As me trying to build a personal brand, if there's any advice you build a media empire, let's say, anything that I need to do? Any advice?
What's your name?
Mahmoud.
What's your full name?
Mahmoud Mustafa Khadr.
Okay, that's it. I think there's too many. This personal brand word is, and when you go to talks, I went to a talk recently about personal brand, and I realized that the individual was talking about becoming a subject matter expert and techniques on LinkedIn. That's not a personal brand. That's becoming known for one thing. A personal brand is above one thing. If I name Cristiano Ronaldo is a footballer, but he's got many businesses, he's got many things. David Beckham, many things. Donald Trump, many things. You know, the list goes on. LeBron James, like the list goes on. And I think as I've thought about this, what do I want Richard Fitzgerald? And many times I almost intentionally sacrifice myself as Rich from Loving Dubai or Rich as a media CEO. But my personal brand, and I don't like that term, but I want Richard I don't really care about legacy or remember, but like if I was strategizing, I would say Richard Fitzgerald needs to be the thing that lives in people's heads. And if you can stomach people having notions, like in this region, people talk a lot about evil eye, but actually, you know, and it's fine, and I get it, but like, you know, you need to have not thick skin, but you need to have the stomach of, if people are saying things about Richard Fitzgerald, then, you know, alhamdulillah, it's positive, and I want to put a positive impact out there, but actually, a lot of that means that if I was strategic about getting that brand out there, it works, you know. And I think we have to sort of think of that as well, because it doesn't. If you're true to yourself, and on Judgment Day, if you lived a good life and you do well, it doesn't really matter if there's some people with negative thoughts on brands. If you're actually doing good, so I think like Augustus Media and Loving Dubai can do all the growth hacking things that personal branders on social media should do, but our own personal brands should be above being a subject matter expert, because a subject matter expert is like a business model. It's actually a personal brand. You know, I saw someone again doing the talk on personal branding, and she wanted to be known as the person who knows about personal branding. That's limiting. Like even Gary Vaynerchuk, who has loads of books, like he wants to own the New York Knicks. Like he actually, his personal brand is beyond the expert on personal branding. You know what I mean? And his name, Gary Vaynerchuk, will stand for more because he has VaynerMedia. He has all these other investments. So ultimately, if you're really, really, really successful at personal branding, and you're a really successful business person or whatever, you're actually going to have more things. So don't limit yourself with an expert on something.
That's so true. Elon Musk, Sam Altman, they don't went to grow their social media, their social presence. They talk about something they're passionate about, and they're very multifaceted.
Yeah, if Elon Musk followed this personal brand gurus, he wouldn't be known for the 50 things that he does.
True.
He'd be the environmentalist or whatever, you know? And of course, that's part of his personal brand, but like, he doesn't get caught up on doing all the techniques of, you know, this funny phrase that people say, like on LinkedIn, all these quotes and stuff like, what X taught me about B2B marketing or whatever, this sort of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Where do you want to target our audience? Where can be useful to you? Where if they want to know more about Smashy business, about Loving Dubai, about anything else?
Yeah, I think your audience, I think, if they find you on YouTube, please do subscribe to Smashy Business on YouTube. And if they're listening to you on Instagram or on TikTok or on the podcast, please do subscribe to Smashy Business Show.
I will include everything in the show notes and your social, because you're very active on Instagram as well. You're a content creator.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Richard Fitzgerald. Fitzy Richard on Instagram, yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thanks a lot, Mahmoud.
God, that was amazing. Oh, God, I love it so much.